pub. It's a big, huge brick building being turned into a pub. So I'm going to give you a close up here. So this is, you can see the rot damage on this panel. So it's a brick building, and there are 7 openings that are big window arrays with transoms, arch windows, um, and underneath of them they have these panels, raised panel sections underneath. And so there's a large center panel, and then there's 2 flankers on both ends like that, and then the dividers. And so this one panel on the north face of the building suffered a lot extreme rot. So you can see it's cardboard. There's nothing left of it. So I've been tasked with repairing this, but we don't want to remove the entire panel array because it's fairly integral in the top. But the thing is, we want to repair this in a way that preserves and restores the integrity of the mortise and tenon system that was used to install it. So I thought it would be cool to take everybody along and show how somebody in the field, a professional that does this every day, would tackle something like this, where all of these profiles are custom. This isn't something you go buy in a store, so all this has to be matched using whatever tooling I have available. Because it's a time-sensitive project, I don't have time to special order a cutter to get this just right. So we're going to go through a process. So the first thing we're going to do is replicate this panel in the small panel.
Okay, so I'm going to narrate some of this as we go. Um, so these panels are a raised panel, which this is probably how it was originally made. It was probably table saw made because it was pretty easy to match. It's a fairly flat profile up the edge of the panel, and then there is a slight curve up, and so you'll see here that's what I'm doing. I'm using my table saw in a coping fashion, and depending on the angle that you set your fence for, you can actually really tighten up that little profile. So I cut the initial curve for the panel profiles to match the other panel, and here we are. And that panel right there is identical to the original panels.
Okay, so this is the vertical. The top tenon is still intact, in good shape. And this is there's no bottom tenon remaining. It's completely disintegrated off of it. Prior to actually removing it, wasn't there at all, just powder. And you can see it's rotted all the way up inside. So we're going to replicate this piece, but we're going to do so in a manner that allows us to install panels after the fact on the new stuff without taking the whole panel out of the building.
Okay, so I tried to explain this as I was doing it, but what you're seeing here is I've taken the two sides of the rails and stiles that I'm replicating, and it's hard to explain, but I think you'll understand as we go. I need to be able to get the panel into an existing frame on site, and there's no way to do that with a mortise and tenon joinery with a solid piece. So what I'm doing is I'm replicating the other pieces, but in a mock way where they're actually two pieces, and the dividing line between the two pieces is the panel on the front. So the idea is that I have a rabbet in the back that the panel sits against, and then I can clad the new pieces over the panels afterwards, and then introduce glue and screws as a temporary clamp to turn it back into one piece. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm matching up these original components identically as I go. And again, I'm trying to maintain the mortise and tenon joinery because I left about 40% of the frame in place. It was actually behind the brick on the ends, and it was partially dadoed into the sill above. So I did not, under any circumstances, want to start pulling that thing apart because it would have been quite a project to have taken it all apart. So, so I'm just, again, I'm replicating the mortise and tenon joinery And obviously I made sure that when I put those screws in, I made sure all of that was spaced out, so that there was no chance I was going to nick it with a blade or anything like that. So this is actually like a couple months ago. Since then, if you've been following the channel, I don't know what the last bit I had in there, but I've got table saw set up, which normally I would do this with a dado blade. I'm just doing it with an 1/8 inch flat kerf um, blade, so it takes a little longer, but we're coming along, so keep an eye out for that. Um, keep an eye out for the next next bunch of videos. I have quite a bit actually saved up. So this is the long bottom rail, and the bottom rail was unique versus the other ones because, as you can see here, it's got a chamfer on the bottom, um, and it's rabbeted. So it's rabbeted around a backer piece in the bottom, and it's chamfered. So I'm just tidying that up now on the new piece and matching that as well. And what I'm doing there, if you notice, is I'm using the original piece until essentially I'm just bumping into it. Okay, so because this is split, what I need to do now is the way that this particular one happened to work is the tenon is actually split between the two halves of this piece. So I chose to split it based on where the routed gap here was, because that's the primary important part, because the panel sits in here. So I need this to be able to clasp over the panel later after the panel's been installed. So that had to be the severed joint. That had to be the split joint. So the way the tenon worked out on these is it's actually split right here. So what I need is this tenon to be attached to the primary piece in the back. So what we're going to do is sever it off here, and then I'm going to glue the remainder. The front half of this tenon is going to be glued to the back side. And as I didn't explain here, the reason that that has to be done is this is old work, so I'm not working with a new frame where I have any ability to do that, to just put it together like that. I need to be able to fit these mortise and tenon joints in ahead of time, which you can only do on the back piece, if that makes any sense. So here I'm just putting in some quick mortise. The bottom rail had that one vertical stile that came down into it, so I am mortising out the mortise for that. And everything else was original, so the original mortises on the rest of that panel frame on that window were intact, and I was able to salvage them. So just double checking my fit. This is the fit for this one, which is nice and snug. Alright, and here we are on site. So if you're ever in Sandpoint, Idaho, this is McDuff's Brewery, and you can see this in person. So this is the back piece that I'm putting on now. So this is the bottom rail. I'm using a polyurethane glue on everything. I like that in this particular case. It expands. It has a little bit of some gap filling properties, which in a case like this is great. But you can see what I did there on that vertical. I've got the full tenon on the top, but I have the full tenon on the bottom. But because of how I'm doing this, I'm able to sleeve that tenon into the top, and then I'll be able to actually set it down into the bottom mortise, but with that panel in place, just like that. So the pocket, on the benchtop mortiser, the pocket there was already bored at when I had them together. So I actually had a mortise for that tenon in the piece. Then when I take it in half, it's essentially just a rabbet there, which allows my tenon to sit in it. So, and I know this looks tight, but it's not. I have expansion room on this panel. It was just snug getting it in there. It's a lot of old paint and stuff. So here I'm applying glue on the back side of that front piece, and now I have the full tenon on the front of that one. Now it's one, and if you noticed on that one, I did not need to sever the tenon, because on that one I'm able to squeeze the tenon up there, but on this bottom one, that wasn't an option. And you'll see here where it's lots of glue. Don't spare the glue. There we go. So the third step on this panel is the molding. Now, I do have footage of replicating the molding, but this video is already going to be fairly long, and it's a pretty tedious process. So I repaired and modified an existing door for this project, and it had the identical moldings. So I am going to be going over the replication of those moldings that I'm putting on right here in another video. But these are custom made moldings to match the originals, and I made enough for this window at this point, and then later I ended up having to make a bunch more for the doors. So if you're interested in that, definitely keep an eye out for the next video, and you'll be seeing how I go about reproducing a molding with some really unique profiles. Actually, it wasn't. It was one of the harder moldings I've had to replicate. So I think that pretty much gets us there. This is just going to be it, cleanup, and I'm going to show you a shot here at the end of the finished product. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting. If you're in the trades and trying to learn this stuff, then I hope it was helpful to you. If you found it useful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe if you're interested, and I will see you on the next one.